procrastinating zombies? Don't have a plan for Halloween yet? Okay, well, it's a day away, so if all else fails, painting your face and accessorizing is a great last-minute option. Here are some tips to get this sort of glam, punk rock skeleton look, inspired by a skull makeup from Vanessa Davis. I've mentioned before that in order for me to draw, I have to be looking at a reference picture. I'm not someone who can draw an image from my imagination or memory. Sculpting is a different story, but when it comes to 2D, I need to see it to be able to translate it. So I used Vanessa Davis's skull pictured here as my reference image to get the proper shape for the skull, and also in wanting to mimic the overall more detailed feel this has. I've done previous skulls on Instagram that were more plain, but I wanted to give you some tips on how someone who can't really draw can still replicate something with more detail. I actually didn't realize this was the work of Vanessa Davis at first because I usually associate her with these sorts of insanely gorgeous holographic iridescent skulls, but she's a jack of all skull trades. Check for her work in the description because she is amazing. Alright, let's begin. The biggest general tip I can think of is to start with the least detailed parts and work your way to the most detailed. So give your face an all white base and your neck an all black base. I'm using water activated paints, but you could use cream paints or alcohol activated paints, or even NYX jumbo pencils if that's what you got. Next, work on the outline of the major shapes. So for a skull, the teeth, jaw shape, eyes, nose, and outline of the face. I'm using gray instead of black for now in case I mess up. Then, visually for me, it helps me to fill in areas that I know won't have much shading or detail. In this case, spots I know will end up solid black and I won't need to work around too much. For this skull, that's the nose and eye sockets. I didn't fill them in completely with black because I like how Vanessa actually kept hers with some lighter spots. It's a nice detail that makes the overall skull look more intricate. So I just laid down the darkest areas for now. Then, little by little, I start filling in more details. Here I'm starting to map where the shading will go, still using that gray color so it's easy to blend and lighten later on. Next, I decided to play with some highlight before I begun shading. This is a super sparkly liquid highlight from Makeup Forever that I painted on a few areas that I wanted to stand out or break up. If you don't have something like this, you can always opt for making your skull slightly off-white and then the highlights a super intense white, but I liked this because its visibility changed depending on where the light hit it. After that, I start the shading. My reference picture uses warmer and a bit more subtle color for this, but to have this match my crazy pink mohawk, I chose a vibrant pink eyeshadow and a more saturated brown. If you're like me and you aren't good at realism type drawing without a reference, my advice is to look at your reference picture area by area. Try to observe exactly what you're seeing in terms of color, shape, darkness, etc., and then work on translating that to your face or model area by area. Personally, it's much easier to tackle small bits at a time than trying to pick up all the correct detail from the big picture. Doing this over time has strengthened my ability to draw things from a visual reference, so it's a great way to practice a skill you want to get better at. The teeth I tackled similarly to the rest of the face, but I started the whole process for them last because the mouth area is the first that will get muddled with face paint. I painted the areas I knew would be darkest, solid black, went over my gray outline with black since I knew now that this was the shape I was settled on for the teeth, and then I started to fill in the shading afterwards. Make sure you shade everything here, even each little tooth, as that's another thing that will make the overall skull look more detailed by the end. Lastly, I'm adding in any details that needed to happen after the shading, such as these tiny cracks and skull defects, and darkening any areas that were affected by the shading. Your best friend in a last-minute makeup-based costume is your outfit and accessories. You could just go out with a skeleton face, but adding quick little things like contacts, some jewels, a spiky jacket, and of course, an epic wig, can hide the fact that you procrastinated to put together a costume until the day before Halloween. How fluffing amazing is this wig, by the way? I saw it already styled in a Halloween shop and I had to get it, not knowing how I'd use it, but I wanted to build the look around it, and a skull seemed all too appropriate. Anyway, I've loved seeing your recreations of Glam&Gore looks this month, and I love how a lot of you take it and put a spin on it to make it your own. Every artist has room to grow, and I am by no means an exception to that. I practice in areas I'm less comfortable in, like 2D face and body painting, by recreating other works, and I hope that you find that when you've recreated some of mine, it helps you grow too. I hope you zombies have a very safe and spooky Halloween. But let's be real, we do Halloween year-round here. I'm going to be Darlene from Mr. Robot because she requires no sticky, bloody hot makeup, which, after subjecting my face to that on a normal basis for the past 3 years, sounds just right for me. See you post-Halloween when the gore don't stop.